Hello, and welcome to the Crazy Reddit Stories podcast. In this episode, we will be looking at a story from an individual who has experienced sexual harassment at his job and is currently being disregarded because of his gender. This is unacceptable and proves that there is room for improvement within the employment industry. At no point should an employee of any company, gender, or religion feel uncomfortable in the workplace. The writers of the CRS podcast agree with the steps taken by the individual, and we wish them luck in their future endeavors. Before we start, did you know that you can support us and gain access to exclusive member-only episodes by becoming a Patreon member? Patreon members get access to exclusive perks such as Discord roles and the ability to post their stories and have them prioritized on our community Discord server. Become a Patreon member today by going to patreon.com/crazy Reddit stories. And let's get back to the episode. Hi. I'm a 32-year-old man, and I work at a marketing agency called Creative Minds. Lately, I've been dealing with a situation that has made my work environment uncomfortable. There's a female coworker, Jessica, who has been overly sexual toward me, and despite my attempts to address it, my manager seems unwilling to take any action because I'm a man. At first, I thought her flirty comments were just harmless banter. Jessica is charming, with a quick wit that makes her popular in the office. But soon, her remarks escalated. She would lean over my desk to whisper something private, her perfume enveloping me in a cloud of distraction. I brushed it off initially, thinking she was just being playful, but it started to feel intrusive. One afternoon, she cornered me in the break room while I was getting coffee. With a sultry smile, she said, "You know, if you ever need help with that presentation, I'd be more than happy to come over, after hours." Her tone left no room for misinterpretation, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Decided to talk to my manager, Dave, hoping he would take my concerns seriously. I explained how Jessica's behavior was crossing a line and making me uncomfortable. To my surprise, he laughed it off, saying, "Come on, man. You're lucky to have someone interested in you at work. Just enjoy it." I felt dismissed, my discomfort reduced to a joke. Feeling frustrated and unheard, I tried to avoid Jessica, but she only seemed to intensify her advances. She'd send me suggestive messages on our company chat and would often find excuses to accidentally brush against me in the office. Each time, I felt my anxiety rise. It was as if the office had turned into a stage where I was the unwilling performer in a play I didn't want to be a part of. After a particularly uncomfortable incident where she invited me to a team-building dinner at her apartment, I decided enough was enough. I went to HR, hoping for a resolution. But when I shared my experiences, I was met with skepticism. The HR rep, a woman, said, "It sounds like she's just being friendly. You might want to lighten up." I felt utterly alone and frustrated, realizing that my concerns were being invalidated simply because of my gender. Desperate, I decided to document everything, every inappropriate comment, every unwanted advance. I gathered my notes and went back to Dave. I laid out my case, hoping he'd finally take me seriously. Instead, he shifted uncomfortably and said, "You know how women can be. You have to be careful how you approach this." His words stung. I felt trapped in a double standard where my feelings didn't matter because I wasn't the one people perceived as vulnerable. It was exhausting, and I began to dread coming into work, knowing I'd have to face Jessica's relentless pursuit. Finally, after weeks of battling with my conscience and my discomfort, I made a tough decision. I started looking for a new job. I loved the work I did at Creative Minds, but I realized that no job was worth my peace of mind. As I began to reach out to other companies, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I wanted to find a workplace where I could focus on my career without being harassed or made to feel small. No one should have to endure a toxic environment, regardless of their gender, and I was determined to find a place that respected everyone. In the end, I learned that speaking up is crucial, even when it feels daunting. I may not have found justice in my current situation, but I would find a new opportunity where I could thrive, free from harassment. And that was the first step toward reclaiming my confidence. As I began applying to new jobs, I felt a mix of hope and anxiety. Each resume I sent out felt like a step toward reclaiming my autonomy, but the memories of the uncomfortable encounters at Creative Minds lingered in the back of my mind. I hoped that my next workplace would be different, more respectful and supportive. A few weeks later, I received an interview invitation from a startup called Innovatech. The company seemed to prioritize a healthy work culture, and I was eager to see if it lived up to its reputation. The day of the interview, I dressed professionally, trying to shake off the lingering doubts about my worth. During the interview, I met with Sarah, the head of marketing, and her enthusiasm was contagious. She spoke passionately about building an inclusive environment where every employee felt valued. I shared my experiences, carefully framing them as lessons learned rather than wounds still open. Sarah listened intently, nodding in understanding. By the end of our conversation, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe this could be a fresh start. Few days later, I received a call offering me the job. I was ecstatic. I could hardly believe I'd landed a position at a company that seemed to genuinely care about its employees. On my first day, I was welcomed warmly by my new team. Everyone was professional and respectful, and I felt an immediate sense of belonging. As the weeks passed, I settled into my role. The work was challenging and rewarding, and my colleagues treated each other with kindness. I appreciated the open door policy that encouraged communication, and I made sure to voice my ideas and opinions freely. It felt good to be in an environment where I could focus on my work without the looming shadow of harassment. But even in this positive setting, I remained cautious. I had built up walls around my personal space, hesitant to let anyone too close too quickly. I knew I had to guard against the experiences of my past, but I also wanted to allow myself to trust again. One afternoon, while working on a project, I received a message from Sarah inviting me to a team lunch. I hesitated, but decided to go. The lunch was relaxed and fun. The team shared stories and laughter, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at ease. As we wrapped up the meal, Sarah pulled me aside. "I appreciate your hard work and your perspective on things. If you ever feel uncomfortable or see something that doesn't sit right, please come to me. I want to ensure everyone feels safe here." Her sincerity touched me, and I felt a wave of gratitude. Maybe this time, I wouldn't have to fight my battles alone. As the months rolled by, I thrived in my new role. I developed strong relationships with my coworkers, collaborating on projects that pushed our creative boundaries. I found my voice again, and I began to advocate for myself and others in a way I hadn't been able to before. Then one day, a new hire joined our team, a young woman named Mia. She was bright, ambitious, and quickly became a favorite among the team. However, during one of our brainstorming sessions, I noticed she seemed hesitant to share her ideas. Afterward, I pulled her aside and asked if everything was okay. With a shaky breath, she confided that she felt uncomfortable speaking up because of a previous job where her contributions were often dismissed. Her story struck a chord, and I could feel the familiar frustration bubbling up within me. I assured her that this was a safe space and encouraged her to share her thoughts without fear. Over the next few weeks, I made it a point to include Mia in discussions, amplifying her voice when I could. Slowly, she began to gain confidence and started contributing valuable insights. Watching her grow reminded me of my own journey and the importance of fostering a supportive environment. One day, while we were collaborating on a project, Mia shared her appreciation for my support. "Thank you for having my back. It means a lot," she said, her eyes bright with gratitude. In that moment, I realized that my experiences, as painful as they had been, had equipped me to make a difference for someone else. Through Mia, I found a renewed sense of purpose. I was determined to continue advocating for an inclusive workplace, ensuring that no one else would have to endure the kind of harassment I had faced. I decided to take a step further by proposing a workshop on workplace respect and communication, something that I hoped would foster understanding and empathy among our team. When I presented the idea to Sarah, she was immediately supportive. "Let's do it. We need to create a culture where everyone feels empowered to speak up," she said. We began organizing the workshop, inviting team members to share their experiences and discuss ways to promote respect in the workplace. As the day of the workshop arrived, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. The room filled with eager faces, and I knew that this was just the beginning of a cultural shift within our company. Sharing my story, alongside others, was both cathartic and empowering. It was a reminder that change is possible when we stand together. As the workshop concluded, I looked around the room at my colleagues, many of whom were sharing their own experiences and pledging to be allies for one another. I felt a profound sense of hope and pride in what we were building together. At that moment, I understood that my past didn't have to define me. Instead, it fueled my passion to create a workplace where respect and dignity were non-negotiable. I had turned a painful experience into a catalyst for change, not just for myself, but for everyone around me. And that felt like true victory. Thanks for listening to this episode of the CRS podcast. To listen to more episodes, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/crazy Reddit stories. Or if you want to continue listening to our free episodes of the CRS podcast, you can browse our mini episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon Music. You can also listen to us on Podcast Index, Samsung Podcasts, and Listen Notes.